3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
That's what I'm talking about, live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a very interesting Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. That's 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, X, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. We got a whole lot to do as we're rocking and rolling with you all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time. Coming up at 4:40 p.m. Eastern time, 1:40 p.m. Pacific today, Tom Luginbill, who does a great job covering college football for the ESPN. And then coming up in the final hour of the show, talk show legend also now is on TV as the host of Breakfast Ball on FS1. Craig Carton will join us. We got a whole lot to do today. How about the Jets, Jets? You can't even write this script. All the hope, all the optimism, all the excitement about Gang Green, and Jets fans telling me Aaron Rodgers is the savior. Breece Hall is the best running back in the league. Garrett Wilson's going to have 1,700 yards. The offensive line is saved and it's revamped. And the defense, this is going to be the early 2000 Ravens. Or it's going to be the LOB with the Seahawks. Or it's going to be the 85 Bears. Or it's going to be the Steel Curtain Steelers. And Robert Saleh, right? He's going to have a really good team for the Jets. He just needed a quarterback. Wah, wah, wah. 5 weeks into the season. 5 weeks into the season. And the Jets are right back to the pit of misery. The Jets are right back to where they belong. This was supposed to be a year where the Jets ascend to the penthouse after years and years and years of being in the football outhouse. And now they've become the first team this season to say goodbye to their head coach. Oh boy. Same old Jets. Say it again. Same old Jets. Now, this is the right move to move on from Robert Saleh. However, with that being said, it is hilarious to me, and same old Jets like, why the Jets, those bozos, couldn't realize, I don't know, in the offseason that Robert Saleh was no good as a head coach. But they couldn't do that. And the reason why they couldn't do that is because at one point, Aaron Rodgers actually liked Robert Saleh. Aaron Rodgers looked at Robert Saleh and said, all right, this is a pushover. This is a doormat coach. This is a player's coach, good culture guy, and someone that I could control. So I like me some Robert Saleh. And then because of how sensitive Aaron Rodgers is, and how easily he could just change an opinion on someone, there were a few things that happened this past offseason and early on in the season where the Jet fan would sit there and say, Zach, it's no big deal. Zach, stop freaking out. Zach, the Jets are going to be great this year. I don't know, like when Rodgers went to Egypt and Robert Saleh gets in front of the media and goes, yeah, it's not an excused absence. Oh, it's no big deal. It's just OTAs. They mean nothing. And then a few weeks ago, when you had that kerfuffle on the sideline after the Jets were actually winning a game where Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh got into it, they were just saying 2-score lead. Nothing to watch there. And then this was the beginning of the end for Robert Saleh in New York, because the moment you lose Rodgers, Rodgers is the president of this team. Rodgers is the owner of this team. Rodgers is the quarterback of this team. Rodgers is the coach of this team. He's the offensive coordinator of this team. He's the general manager of this team. So once you lose Rodgers, that's when your fate as the head coach of the Jets is sealed, signed, and delivered. And after that contest, going up against the Broncos, where the Jets lost to Denver in a game at one point where Bo Nix had -7 passing yards. -7. You can't even write this script. Robert Saleh gets in front of the media and criticizes the cadence of Aaron Rodgers. And Rodgers was disgusted with that. So Woody Johnson could be a lackey today. And Woody Johnson could be a mouthpiece for Aaron Rodgers. And he could tell Adam Schefter, Jets owner Woody Johnson said he spoke to Aaron Rodgers on Monday night, but it wasn't about Robert Saleh. Johnson said Rodgers had no input in the decision made this morning. Bullcrap. There is no way, and let me call him by his proper title, that Ambassador Johnson would ever fire Robert Saleh without consulting Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers still wanted Robert Saleh to be the head coach, guess what? I'll let you in on a little secret. He would still be the head coach. But Aaron Rodgers' relationship with Robert Saleh deteriorated after 5 quick games of the season. So it's not the wrong move by the Jets to move on from Robert Saleh today. But they should have had the foresight, after getting to know him the last few years, that he wasn't equipped to be the head coach or the HC of the NYJ. He just wasn't. And they should have moved on in this past offseason from him. But this is what happens when you hand your entire franchise over in a team sport to a star player. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me a lot like the Nets and Kevin Durant. It's still a risk that was worth taking. KD with Brooklyn didn't work out, and we know Aaron Rodgers with the Jets isn't going to work out. And I know KD went on that great run where they lost in the second round to the Milwaukee Bucks, and he played his ass off. But Kevin Durant's time in Brooklyn and Aaron Rodgers' time in New York with the Jets were synonymous with drama, coaches getting fired, off the court's antics, and teams not meeting their goals. Because when Aaron Rodgers was brought to the Jets, the goal was to get Aaron Rodgers a second Super Bowl. When Kevin Durant was brought to the Nets, the goal was to deliver the Nets an NBA championship. KD failed. And I know people could say, oh, it wasn't all KD's fault. KD should have been a man, and he should have told Kyrie Irving to stop with his nonsense. He didn't have the cojones to do that. Aaron Rodgers has created a culture in New York where it's his way or the highway, but his way right now isn't good enough to win a championship, and it may not even be good enough to make the playoffs. But the Jets, welcome back to reality for the Jets. It was nice. You got to go to your happy place. It was like Happy Gilmore. You got to envision what a Super Bowl parade would be like. Oh, having a franchise quarterback, a stud quarterback. Oh, this great roster. And right now, after 5 games into the season, the Jets have imploded. They're unraveling. And they need to have a last desperation chance, a Hail Mary attempt to save their season by getting rid of their head coach. And maybe they could be improved without Robert Saleh. But just because you appoint Jeff Ulbrich as the interim head coach and he's supposedly going to be the coach for the rest of the season doesn't mean the offensive line all of a sudden is going to start blocking. Doesn't mean that Aaron Rodgers is going to start not looking like a quarterback who's 40, basically playing on one leg. You know, maybe Breece Hall will eventually start to be the player that he could be, but through the first 5 games of the season, he's been no good. And this defense, guess what? It's a good defense, but it's not an all-time great defense like the Jets thought they had entering this season. So they could get maybe a few weeks of an emotional high, moving on from Robert Saleh, having a new voice in the locker room. But long-term, the Jets aren't going to work. This tenure with Aaron Rodgers, whether it's over at the end of this year or maybe he plays one more season after this, it's going to always be a disaster. And it's going to continue to be a disaster. Because this roster that the Jets thought that they built, which was some great roster, it's got holes. And the holes start in the trenches up front. The holes also continue with the quarterback that can still be good, but he's not the all-time great quarterback that we've seen in years past in Green Bay. So they're moving on from Robert Saleh. I don't think Robert Saleh got the short end of the stick. I don't think this is an unfair move to get rid of Robert Saleh. But for Robert Saleh, we all knew the one reason why he was brought back as the coach this year of the Jets is because he had a good relationship with Aaron Rodgers. And I don't always want my quarterback and coach to have a warm, fuzzy relationship. It's okay to have a little bit of confrontation. It's okay to challenge your quarterback a little bit. But the quarterback needs to be able to take it. And even though Robert Saleh doesn't have this great reputation, and Aaron Rodgers obviously knew that Robert Saleh was an inferior head coach, when your quarterback is the one calling the shots all over the organization, the moment the coach speaks out of term, or the moment the coach criticizes a sensitive quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, that's going to be it for Robert Saleh when you're not winning football games. And that's just the reality. So it could be the Egypt comments, you know, the unexcused absence. It could be whatever happened on the sideline, Patriots, Jets, or probably the straw that broke the camel's back was the cadence comments. Because even over the summer, it didn't seem like Rodgers was disgusted with Saleh. It didn't seem like even on the sidelines, when they had that bizarre situation that was captured on Amazon, they at least spun it the right way. But you could tell Rodgers was disgusted with the cadence comments. And that's ultimately what did him in. But does this move all of a sudden, is it going to be the turning point? Is there going to be some NFL Films documentary? The Jets fired Robert Saleh, after week 5, after losing in London to the Minnesota Vikings, and Jeff Ulbrich turned their season around. No chance. The only thing I'm surprised today that he got fired. Let me be clear. I said yesterday, though, that if they didn't beat the Bills, Woody Johnson on Monday had to fire after that game coming up on Monday. He had to fire Robert Saleh. So I am surprised that it happened today. But I'm just kind of surprised if they were going to move on from him, that it wasn't the way that the Jets would usually do something like this and just make it a complete and utter bleep show and an embarrassment. I'm surprised they even let him back on the plane. I really am, from London. Wouldn't that be so on brand for the Jets, Jets, to leave the coach in London? There's a lot surprising here. But I think that's the most surprising part, that they waited until Tuesday morning to do so. But this baloney that the Jets are trying to give you, yeah, we didn't consult Aaron Rodgers on this. Or Woody Johnson also said he consulted with Jets GM Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, but this was his decision alone. Yeah, okay. Woody, if you want to go take the bullets, go take the bullet. We all know that Aaron Rodgers was fed up with the coach. Aaron Rodgers lost respect for the coach, and Aaron Rodgers wanted the coach out. And that's why the coach is out. Because Woody Johnson, there's no way you're getting rid of Robert Saleh if Aaron Rodgers still wanted him there, because it's the only reason he was back with the team this year. And here's also the statement from Woody Johnson. This statement, you want to talk about dragging a dead body? This is what Woody Johnson did. And you know what? I know we talk about these guys and we have some fun. Robert Saleh did lose his job today. Robert Saleh is going to be fine. But I will say, there's a certain way to fire someone when it comes to sports, and then there's a way you shouldn't fire someone. The Jets escorting Robert Saleh out with the director of security like he was some threat, and not letting him, I know it's an off day, the players are off, but not letting him talk to any players that maybe were there and for treatment is just ridiculous. But Robert Saleh is a good guy. He's just a bad head football coach. So I don't think you needed to drag him, but the Jets in this statement elected to drag Robert Saleh. This morning, I informed Robert Saleh that he will no longer serve as the head coach of the New York Jets. I thanked him for his hard work these past 3.5 years and wished him and his family well moving forward. That was not an easy decision, but we are not where we should be given our expectations. And I believe now is the best time for us to move in a different direction. If that was the end of the statement, that's a professional statement. But Woody Johnson can't help himself. And this is why he's a petulant owner. Listen to this. It's intended to praise Jeff Ulbrich, the new interim head coach who was the DC, but it just drags the corpse of Robert Saleh during his tenure as the head coach. Jeff Ulbrich will serve as our interim head coach for the remainder of the season. He is a tough coach who has the respect of the coaches and players on this team. I believe he, along with the coaches on the staff, can get the most out of our talented team and attain the goals we established this offseason. By saying that, you're saying Robert Saleh is not a tough coach. He doesn't have the respect of the coaches and the players on the team. And you know what? I don't think that this is unfair to get rid of Robert Saleh, but I will say this. Woody Johnson is valuing the opinions of Aaron Rodgers, the players on this team, and the other coaches on this team. Let's be clear. This decision made today was Aaron Rodgers driven. But Woody, I don't know. Maybe everyone in that organization, and you do need a tougher coach, and it's not Saleh. I don't know if it's going to be Ulbrich or not. But I think the Jets value too much the opinion of their own players. Like Sauce Gardner last night, even though his intentions were good, bitching online about Breece Hall getting criticism. Hey, Sauce, when you guys talk the talk that you did and your team's playing the way that you did, and Breece Hall's been MIA, whether the criticism is fair or not, it's going to be there. And you guys got to handle that. And the Jets are just such a weak organization. They have no thick skin. And it's almost like, oh, they're finally at the cool kid table, so we're going to listen to all the cool kids and not do what's right. Because if they would have just done what was right in the offseason, they wouldn't even be in this mess. They would have got rid of Robert Saleh this offseason and brought in someone that could still be a player's coach but can't be a doormat. That's Robert Saleh's problem. He's too much of a player's coach. I'm not saying you got to be a drill sergeant, but you can't let the players walk all over you. And Aaron Rodgers walked all over Robert Saleh. The Jets are one big mess. And I just can't wait to see what happens on Monday. Because you got two teams right now that are in a bad spot. Like the Bills, what McDermott did was coaching malpractice at the end of that game up against the Houston Texans. And now the Jets, who were like one of the biggest talking points in this entire offseason, 5 games into the season, have already fired their coach. The NFL, man, really something. If you want to chime in on Aaron Rodgers firing Robert Saleh, that's how I'll word it. You could do so, 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. I've seen 5 weeks of football, and your team may have a good record. Most of the people listening, your team probably does not have a satisfactory record because that's just been the extra sloppy play we have seen in the NFL. But when we come on back, there's only one team that you could actually trust this NFL season. We'll recap the Chiefs-Saints next. But first, sports fans, listen up. 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer, and bladder leaks can be a side effect. That's why Depend is teaming up with the Prostate Cancer Foundation to encourage screening. Because health is a long game, and it's yours to win. Now, here's the cool part. Through November, Depend is contributing up to $300,000 to prostate cancer research by donating 40 cents for every purchase of shields, guards, and Real Fit products. Void in Mississippi. Learn more at Depend.com.
You're in a 4.5-minute break. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
Oh, boy. So I guess Woody Johnson is speaking right now, and we read you some of the quotes already from Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport. And Woody's big line is, oh, Aaron had no say in this matter, even though he talked to Aaron in the last few days. And also he consulted with Joe Douglas, but this is a Woody Johnson decision. I'll give you one report and something that was just said by Woody Johnson that has nothing to do with this situation, but it has to do with Hassan Reddick. So let me give you the report first. Now, remember, the Jets and their owner, Woody Johnson, which is the biggest baloney ever, claiming that Aaron Rodgers had no say in this decision. Come on, Woody. How stupid do you think we are? You know, I would respect the Jets more today if they just said Aaron didn't like Robert Saleh anymore. The players didn't like Robert Saleh anymore. They didn't respect him anymore. And that's it. We're moving on. All right? But this idea that you now need to protect still your sensitive quarterback who clearly is making this decision is comical to me. Aaron's a big boy. Aaron, right, doesn't care what people say about him. So let's just be honest. And I can't wait to hear Aaron Rodgers on Pat McAfee tomorrow. And I know Aaron and Pat are buddy-buddy, but Pat, you got to ask Aaron, did you want the coach to get fired? And if you don't, it's a waste of an interview. But Jonathan Jones, CBS insider, just reported that Robert Saleh considered firing offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett prior to getting his own pink slip from Woody Johnson. Now, in the article, it does say that sources say Saleh could have made the move to fire Hackett as early as Tuesday, which is when Johnson ultimately made the decision on Saleh himself. So this is what the Jets are trying to tell you. Hey, Aaron Rodgers had no part in this. But if there was already reports out there, or now they're coming out, that Saleh was considering firing Nathaniel Hackett as early as Tuesday, and I don't know, then Saleh gets fired on Tuesday, what does that tell you? Like, you got to be the biggest dope on the planet if you can't figure this out. Saleh, when he talked to Woody Johnson, said, I'm thinking about, I want to fire Nathaniel Hackett. He's got to get approval. And Woody Johnson probably told him, hold off a second. Then he talked to Aaron, and Aaron was like, bleep this guy. He's criticizing my cadence. He's criticizing my trip to Egypt. You know, I'm getting into it with him on the sideline, and he's a terrible coach. He's 20-36. Get rid of him. And now he wants to fire my best friend and Nathaniel Hackett, who's also incompetent. But that's the Jets. You know, Ringling Brother and Barnum Bailey Circus may have shut down, but the Jets are always open. You can't even write this stuff. Aaron Rodgers is running the team. Aaron Rodgers was a great quarterback. He's no longer a great quarterback. The line still sucks. Breece Hall is MIA. Garrett Wilson and Rodgers can't get on the same page. The defense is overrated. And Aaron Rodgers still has the need to protect Nathaniel Hackett. It's like you run the entire organization. And you know what? Saleh, it's not a bad decision to get rid of Hackett. So this thing is just, you spin the wheel, and wherever it lands, there's something that just pumps out comedy. And there's like 8 options on the wheel that we could just laugh at the Jets and say, same old Jets. Like, Stu, does anyone, maybe I'm overreacting here. Sometimes that happens. But is there any sane human being on this planet that actually believes, I don't care, whatever reporter it is, and however far up Woody Johnson's, you know what, they have their head buried, even that reporter can't believe that Aaron Rodgers didn't have the final say in this decision. They could say, oh, yeah, Woody made the call. But Woody's not making that call if Aaron doesn't say, hey, Woody, here's the piece of paper with my signature on it to get rid of Robert Saleh. Like, the Jets, I understand there's a PR part to this. I understand that they're not going to say Aaron didn't want him anymore. But it's like, you can't just think we're stupid. And for you to, it'd be better if the Jets didn't even have Woody Johnson speak today. If they're going to try to tell you that Aaron Rodgers had no say in this, and then Jonathan Jones, who's a credible, really good reporter, is like, oh, well, Robert Saleh considered firing offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett, and he was going to get the approval and had the possibility to do that as soon as Tuesday. And then all of a sudden, Robert Saleh, here's your pink slip. You're gone. Jeez. And Woody Johnson made a deal with Aaron Rodgers. So you're going to do everything that Aaron Rodgers wants. But I think this is the part that people forget about Aaron Rodgers because of his talent and his MVPs. The guy won a Super Bowl early in his career, has been on good teams, and has never got back to a Super Bowl. And there's just excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse that is made for Aaron Rodgers. Top 10 quarterback of all time, first ballot Hall of Famer, but this guy just continues to get a pass over and over and over again when it comes to people criticizing him for not winning another Super Bowl. How many times, we were on Milwaukee for years. How many times Packers fans will call me up and be like, oh, it was the defense. Oh, it was the special teams. Oh, it was the coaching. Tom Brady in that NFC Championship game where the Bucs walked into Lambeau and defeated the Packers, he was begging for the Packers to advance the Super Bowl. He threw 3 interceptions in the second half. And everyone crushes LaFleur for that dopey decision to take the field goal. But Rodgers got the ball back. It was either 2 or 3 times, down 5, and he went 3 and out every time. And even on that last drive where they had to settle for the field goal, he stalled in the red zone where he could have ran the football and actually may have gotten in the end zone or bare minimum a first down. Rodgers is a great quarterback. Rodgers is an all-time great. Rodgers is a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I know he's won a Super Bowl, and a lot of teams would just love to have one Super Bowl. But there is a disappointment to Aaron Rodgers' career. You could be an all-time great and also have this sentence follow, but should have at least got to another Super Bowl or should have won another Super Bowl. It's not like they haven't been there. But this era of Rodgers now with the Jets, it's a doozy. It really is. And you know what? We all know how the football season's going to end anyway. Kansas City's going to win the whole thing again. It's like, I'm watching the Chiefs last night, and they haven't even played a full 60-minute game. They haven't yet, and they're undefeated. And look at Kansas City. They remind me so much like the Patriots. It's wild. Bringing back Juju Smith-Schuster, bringing back Kareem Hunt. It's like you put those guys back in, it looks like they never left. And they produce instantly. And Mahomes doesn't have great wide receivers. Brady didn't have, for the most of his career, great wide receivers. And you know what the scary part is? It's now been a year plus where the Chiefs have been, quote unquote, vulnerable. And it's now been a year plus where the Chiefs' defense has been better than the Chiefs' offense. And no one could find a way to take down Kansas City when it matters. And there's a lot of mediocrity this year in the NFL. So a team like the Jets, even though they're 2-3 and you know all the flaws that they have, they're like, oh, we got to make a coaching change because we're still in it. But when push comes to shove, I don't even know if the Jets will be there, but if they are, you can't trust them in a big game. You can't trust them in a big spot. Because what people thought this Jets team was greatly exaggerated. The line's revamped. The line's still no good. I think Breece Hall will bounce back, but he's been terrible at times this year. Rodgers is 40 on one leg. Like, Brady mind bleeped us all. Oh, you can play till you're 45. Tom Brady ain't going to Egypt and locking himself in some cave and doing ayahuasca. The guy, wouldn't even need anything. Wouldn't even need a cheeseburger. And he was all about that wacky pliability stuff. But Brady actually cared about his body. And he was dedicated to it cost him his marriage, the game of football. So Brady's an anomaly that he played to 45. But not everyone's going to go play till they're 40 because naturally the body's not made for 40-year-olds to be playing football. And Rodgers is looking old. And the Jets are going to get him killed with this offensive line. So, geez, this is... What a day. What a day. That's all I'll say. Marco Belletti is here, El Capitan. So my take has been this. The Jets were right to move on from Robert Saleh. I don't have a problem with it. However, they should have realized this in the offseason and had a new coach come in. But that's because Aaron Rodgers was then buddy-buddy with Robert Saleh, and enough things happened where Saleh has lost all trust, or Rodgers lost all trust in Robert Saleh. He also tried to get Nathaniel Hackett hired, which is the right thought, but we know how Rodgers views Nathaniel Hackett. This is just, and I know that same old Jets gets thrown out there. This is just same old Jets. It's what a circus. What a cluster bleep this is. 5 games into the season.
There's one common denominator. Woody Johnson.
Yeah, it's fair.
That's what's wrong with this whole thing. It stinks from the head down. Because Woody Johnson had all the chances in the world to move on from Robert Saleh or Joe Douglas or whatever he wanted to do in the offseason. Decided not to. Don't tell me that Aaron Rodgers changed his mind after 5 weeks. I find that difficult to believe. I think he just didn't fall on the sword. Woody Johnson made this change, went to Aaron Rodgers and said, I'm doing this. Are you going to fight back? And Rodgers was like, no, but this is dumb.
Okay.
That's my feeling.
So you actually think this was Woody's call first.
100%.
Not Aaron.
100%.
Now, that's...
Because Aaron Rodgers is way too stubborn and he's in control. What does he gain by losing Robert Saleh? So he loses his shield?
But you still have Hackett there, you still have Ulbrich there, and they're not going to usurp Aaron Rodgers.
He had the guy in place.
Yeah. But you know what the guy did? What changed?
What?
The cadence comments. And then also, according to this Jonathan Jones report, that Robert Saleh was thinking about firing Hackett, and he would have had the power to do so as soon as today. Like, that to me, Rodgers gets wind of that. No. Woody, get rid of this guy. That's how I think this goes down.
Again, it's possible. Anything's possible with Aaron Rodgers. I find it difficult to believe that the guy who had all the power, what we said was basically the GM of the team, who was in control of it all, was now all of a sudden worried about Robert Saleh taking control back?
Okay, but let me ask you this. You do agree, though. I think we're on the same page. Even if whoever had the call first, maybe we disagree with. You do agree, though, if Woody goes to Aaron, let's say you're right and it was Woody's call first, and Aaron goes, no, I want to keep him here.
Yeah, he could have saved him.
Okay.
He could have saved him. He didn't want to.
Okay.
Because
this move isn't made without Rodgers giving his blessing.
This was Woody Johnson comes to him, lays it all out. I'm going to do blah, 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 and goes through the whole thing. And Aaron Rodgers is kind of like, well, all right, fine. You made up your mind. You know what you want to do. Okay, I'm not going to stop you. I'm just a player. So I think he was playing the Aaron Rodgers card of, look, don't blame me because I didn't do this and I don't want to do this, but you do whatever you want to do. Because I think he also knows that bottom line, Jeff Ulbrich or anybody else, doesn't matter. I'm still in control.
Well, and here's where the Jets were just so stupid this offseason. We all knew Saleh was not a good NFL head coach. He's a good defensive coordinator, not a good NFL head coach. However, there were guys out there. I don't think Belichick is ever coaching the Jets.
No chance, zero.
But a guy like Mike Vrabel is what a coach should be in 2024. Because Saleh's problem was he was a player's coach, but he was a doormat. Mm-hmm. Mike Vrabel is one of those coaches that, yes, he leans more player coach, but he's not a guy that's going to get the locker room, get to the spot where the Jets locker room has been, where there is no control.
Respect.
Mm-hmm.
He commands a room and he demands respect. And Robert Saleh didn't have that. So, yeah, they had a million chances in the offseason. And that's why I don't really look at this as Aaron Rodgers changed his mind. I feel like Woody Johnson just knee-jerk because he hears the press. He sees the 2 bad losses. The loss in London, don't kid yourself. That was put them over the top. Ambassador to London, hanging out with his buddies, all the people, and he watches
Mangini
them.
said that going into the game.
And he watched them lay an egg, and it hurt his ego. and he came back, and this was part of it. Now, I'm not saying Robert Saleh deserved to keep his job. No, he was inept.
Sure.
But that decision needed to be made in the offseason. That's where the Jets and Woody Johnson are inept. You could have made that move, and nobody would have blinked. You make it now, and you screw everything up because you show that you have no idea what you want to do, and you have no control of anything.
In 30 seconds or less, how are we talking about the Jets at the end of this season?
They're still a playoff team. They're still a 10-win team, roughly, and they're still going to be
10 wins.
Yeah, there's too much talent. The only thing
This line sucks.
I know the offensive line is a mess. The only way this derails is if Aaron Rodgers' knee or any other part of his body completely gives out and they wind up with Tyrod Taylor. That's a different conversation. If they're able to keep this together, this move, as dumb as it is and the timing of it as awful as it is, could actually bring them together with the rally of the troops nonsense. Whatever that is, this was an old team that was trying to learn on the fly, and they'll continue to get better as the season goes on. Bad losses early will pile up into 4 or 5 win streak at some point later in the season.
Just quickly, just give me the win or loss.
Yeah.
Bills this Monday.
Yes.
Win?
Yep.
Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh the following week.
Nope.
At New England.
Yes.
Texans short week.
Home?
Yes.
I'm going to give him a win there.
At Arizona.
No.
Indianapolis.
Yes.
Seattle. I was going to say bye week, but the Jets could lose a bye week. Seattle.
Yes.
At Miami.
Yep.
Wow. At Jacksonville.
Yep.
Rams.
Yep.
At Buffalo.
No.
Miami.
Yep.
So you have this team having 9 more wins. And right now, they have 2. So you have them going 11 wins still.
Again, they're going to get on a run. When they get their feet under them, they're going to get on a run.
I think the highest this team could go this year is 10-7.
And either way, whether it's 10 or 11, we're splitting hairs. They're going to get into the playoffs, and then it's a question of, do they get the right matchup? My guess is probably not, and they'll either lose in the divisional round or possibly the AFC Championship.
And if the playoffs were to start today, and I got to take a break, Chiefs, Texans, Ravens, Bills would be your 4 division winners. Your wild card teams would be the Steelers, Broncos, and Chargers. That's the other part of this. A lot of mediocrity in the first 5 weeks.
Steelers scare you?
No, none of these teams scare
Broncos scare you?
The only team that
And I
scares me in the
know it's
NFL.
head-to-head, but come on now.
I'm not saying there aren't other good teams in the NFL. The only team that scares me in the NFL are the Kansas City Chiefs. All righty. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. One more gem from Woody Johnson. This on Hassan Reddick. According to Connor Hughes. Hassan, get in your car, drive down 95, and come to the New York Jets, and we can meet you and give you an escort right into the building. You'll fit right in. Love it here. Feel welcome and accomplish great things with us. Yeah, because the Jets, happy place, the New York Jets.
That's a real quote?
Yeah.
Please tell me that's not a real quote.
Connor Hughes. All righty, let's get the latest update with the Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Zach, sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your family, your phone, and your furry friends with Life Electronic Device and Pet Health Insurance. Back-to-back losses sitting at 2-3 on the season with high expectations, and the Jets shook things up. Fired Head Coach Robert Saleh to 3+ seasons and a record of 20-36. Jets will now look to right the ship in the hands of defense coordinator Jeff Ulbrich on an interim basis, getting ready for the Bills Monday night with the winner taking first place in the AFC East. Mets and Phillies, Game 3 in New York. Aaron Nola getting the nod for Philadelphia and looking forward to the hostile environment.
This is a pretty cool place to play, pretty cool place to pitch. I pitched here quite a few times, and first time in the postseason. So definitely looking forward to it.
Then it's the Dodgers and Padres. LA manager Dave Roberts accusing San Diego of manufacturing some fake fuel to get themselves going.
I'm not going to manufacture something that is not real. But again, it needs to be found. And I do believe that we had it in game 1, and game 2 just got away from us. So I do expect our guys to come out with that fight.
And former Major League pitcher Louis Tiant has died. 3-time All-Star winner of 2 ERA titles, won 229 games in his 19-year career. Tiant was 83. I'm Marco Belletti.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
The Defensive Player of the Week is sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the Armed Forces, DoD veterans, and their families. Their members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. This week's player is Broncos cornerback Patrick Surtain II in Sunday's win over the Raiders. Sorry, Stu. Surtain had 2 interceptions, including one that he took 100 yards to the house. The former first-round pick out of Alabama now has 9 career interceptions. And Champ Bailey, who told us about a month ago that Surtain could accomplish everything he did and then some, was in the building for that game. And you saw Surtain and Bailey have a moment before the game. We do have breaking news on the show. And the breaking news, according to Adam Schefter, a QB change in New England. The Patriots are now planning to turn to rookie first-round pick Drake May to start Sunday's game against the Houston Texans per sources. May will now join Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Bo Nix as the 4th rookie quarterback to start this season. Let me say this about Drake May, and let me say this about the Patriots and Gerard Mayo. I don't understand what their plan was with Drake May. Because if you're going to start Drake May up against the Texans this weekend, then why didn't you start him last week up against an inferior opponent in the Miami Dolphins who also don't have a quarterback? Like, if you're looking for a soft landing spot for your young quarterback who you're trying to not mess up, and this offensive line, I just pray they don't get him killed. Because this offensive line is one of the worst offensive lines I have ever seen. So the Patriots put the training wheels on Drake May. They were coddling him. We don't want to get you killed. We don't want to ruin your career, so we're not going to have you start the season. Even though individually he was ready to start the season by some of the reporting that we saw coming out of training camp towards the end and in the final few weeks in the build-up to the season during the preseason. That narrative, that tone on Drake May from he wasn't ready to now he is ready drastically changed. So why didn't the Patriots start in week 1? It was to protect him. But then the Patriots, in a blowout game where they were getting crushed by the lousy Jets, they threw Drake May out there in garbage time. And he got sacked like 3 times. It was stupid. And Gerard Mayo, his messaging about Drake May has completely been inconsistent. He sounds like a rookie head coach because he is a rookie head coach. You know, go Belichick. Give the media nothing there. But to play Drake May this week, I like it as a Patriot fan because it actually gives you a reason to actually want to watch, an incentive. But to play him this week and not play him last week, why? What was the point? It makes absolutely positively 0 sense. But here's the hope. Drake May uplifts this organization because the Patriots went from the penthouse for 20 years to now the NFL outhouse. But that could change rather quickly in this league. We saw how quickly C.J. Stroud changed the Texans. We've seen now through 5 games what Jaden Daniels is doing for the Washington Commanders. So if Drake May is a franchise quarterback, as long as he could stay healthy, he will make this team better. And then hopefully that sends a message to the rest of the league and other wide receivers that, hey, New England has a quarterback. Because last offseason, the Patriots tried to get wide receivers. They offered Brandon Ayuk a ridiculous amount of money. He didn't want to come here. And you got some wide receivers that are going to be available this offseason. Now, you could throw them the bag even if you don't have the quarterback and you could maybe get them. But it does help when you have a young, promising quarterback. And I just hope that Drake May can show that he could be that young, promising quarterback. And that's how we're talking about him at the end of the year. And it's not, oh, this rancid offensive line now has Drake May with the torn ACL and his rookie season is shot and over with. Because that's a fear that I have. But they're ready to rip off the Band-Aid. It just doesn't make sense to me why they weren't ready to rip off the Band-Aid a week ago against the Miami Dolphins. And now you're going to play them up against a really solid team in the Houston Texans. But it is kind of fitting because we saw the Texans go from laughingstock to now being considered a well-run organization and a good team because of their quarterback, C.J. Stroud, just uplifting that entire organization. It is fitting that Drake May is going to make his debut up against the Texans because I now want the Patriots to become the Texans. Who would have ever thought that would be a sentence said into a microphone on a national radio program? And the Texans haven't even won anything of significance yet, But the Patriots now got to follow that Texans plan where it's not going to happen all right away in year one. But the quarterback needs to show enough signs that does resonate with the rest of the league that, okay, New England has something. So then they can at least be a destination this offseason with all the cash that they're going to throw the way of these wide receivers. Because what the Patriots have on offense right now, it is the bare minimum. The offensive line, brutal. At least you got two good running backs as long as Ramondre Stevenson can hold on to the football and Antonio Gibson. Like, they can at least run the football. But wide receivers, I would say Polk, who's the rookie out of Washington, is their best wide receiver, but that's not saying much. Like, this wide receiver core is brutal. And how many times do we talk about young quarterback? It's all about where you go. Patriots used to be a good destination. Now they're no longer. But if Drake May is all what people say he can be, and that he has the potential to be a stud, a franchise quarterback finds a way to turn garbage into gold. And he finds a way to do more with less. And then this offseason, that's where Elliott Wolf has to be wheeling and dealing Wolf, and he has to go on out there, and he has to get more talent for Drake May. Because the fact that the Patriots rolled into this season with this offensive line, knowing that they were going to have a young quarterback eventually play at some point, it is an embarrassment. Like, this offensive line, however bad you think your offensive line is, the Patriots' offensive line is 10 times worse. That offensive line is brutal. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Let me just play one quick cut here. This is on the Jets situation with Robert Saleh. This is Woody Johnson on firing Robert Saleh. We'll give you a little snippet of this.
This is one of the most talented teams that has ever been assembled by the New York Jets. I wanted to give this team the most opportunity to win this season. I feel that we had to go in a different direction, and that's why I did that today. This change, the change that we made today, that I made, I believe will bring new energy and positivity that will lead to more wins starting now.
Yeah, we'll see. Woody could say whatever he wants. Only delusional Jet fans are the ones sitting there saying, yeah, this is going to turn the season around. Now, there's always an emotional boost. Even Jeff Saturday got one win when he got the job as an interim. That first game, there's always an emotional boost. But that's just like a little high. It's not going to last you through the entirety of the season. I'm not going to be like Marco and say the Jets are going to go win 11 games. That was something from Marco. But the NFL is still open to make the playoffs. But this idea that the Jets are going to go very far, please, that's already down the drain. And we're not even at Thanksgiving yet. How do you like them apples? We'll take a timeout. We'll come on back. Who's the next NFL head coach to get fired? We'll discuss in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. What a day this has been in the NFL. You've had Robert Saleh fired as the HC of the NYJ. Jeff Ulbrich will take over. And then, just a few moments ago, we reacted to it. Drake May. The baton is going to Drake May. And he may be the Patriots quarterback of the future. We'll have to wait and see, but he'll get his first start this weekend up against the Houston Texans. So, when we look at Robert Saleh, and I've pretty much just said everything that there is to say about this, I do think this was an Aaron Rodgers decision. Woody Johnson was clearly embarrassed what happened in London. The relationship between Saleh and Rodgers deteriorated quickly into this season, whether it was the comments about Rodgers' trip to Egypt being on an excused absence, other times where there have been moments on the sidelines, like when you saw Rodgers and Saleh, the 2-score lead thing, which was just always weird. You know what? I was actually, Stu, I don't know if I told you this. When I went to the Patriot-Jet game, my seats were behind like 10 of the New York Jets wives and girlfriends. And when that Saleh Rodgers icy situation happened, you know how I found out about it? I found out about it because one of the wives of the Jets said, you got to see what happened, what's going on social media right now between Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh. And the phone was getting passed down the line of just the wives and girlfriends of some Jets offensive players. I want to say 8 out of the 10 wives that were sitting in front of me or girlfriends that were sitting in front of me were all offensive players. And I was like looking at the video because it was literally right in front of me. And I'm like, I didn't see that yet. So I then went on my phone and I saw that whole situation go down. But the the straw that really broke the camel's back was really the whole Cadence comments. Because Rodgers at least played nice with all the other stuff. That was the thing that really perturbed him. And then you followed up with the loss in London. And then also you get wind that, according to Jonathan Jones of CBS, that Robert Saleh was contemplating and wanted to, maybe as soon as Tuesday, which would be today, fire Nathaniel Hackett, who's like best friends, right? Nate Hackett, best friends with Aaron Rodgers. This is just the Aaron Rodgers playbook, folks. Things don't go your way. You blame others. You take no accountability. And you don't end up finding a way to win when it actually matters the most. And this idea that this decision is going to turn the Jets season around, I don't see it. It could get a little bit of a hot streak. There could be a little bit of a run. Maybe the Jets can make the playoffs. But even if they're a wild card team, that wasn't the objective of this team. I never thought the Jets were going to win the Super Bowl this year. I never thought they were getting to an AFC championship game. I thought if everything went right for the Jets this year, if everything went right for the Jets this year, and you know everything never goes right for the Jets, they would be an AFC East champion at best. I didn't pick them to win the AFC East. And then they'd win one playoff game before bowing out in the second round. I know that this year of football, there's not a lot of strong teams. I'm off tomorrow, but I'll be back on Thursday. I'm headed to the Met game tomorrow and doing some actually work at the Met game as well. But for Thursday, when we do Take 5 Wednesday and a Thursday, like picking the top 5 teams in college football in the NFL this year is going to be really difficult. Because at least like in college, right, and the NFL, you know who 1 and 2 are. Right now, it's Texas and it's Ohio State. And in the NFL, right now, it's the Chiefs and it's the Minnesota Vikings. But just trying to figure out who's 3, 4, and 5 is extremely difficult. Now, in the NFL, you have an AFC and an NFC. 7 in the AFC get into the playoffs. 7 in the NFC get into the playoffs. So with how ugly that the NFL season has been through the first 5 weeks, is it still possible the Jets make the playoffs? Yes. But right now, how could you expect anything positive out of this team? And can the Jet fans stop telling me about how much talent they have? Marco Belletti's not even a Jet fan, and he's gassing up this roster. The Jets are such an overrated team. And this is my biggest gripe. My biggest gripe, Stu, and you know this. People rush to use the word great. If I use the word great on this show, 2 things either happen. 1, I truly believe someone's great, or 2, in the moment I misspoke and was just searching for a word and used great. But we are so quick to rush to say this guy's the GOAT or this guy's great. You know, in all offseason, I heard how great the Jets roster is. You know, there's just certain teams in the NFL that no matter when you think they're getting it right, they still find a way to bleep it up. And kind of look at this right now. We had the last few years positive things being said about the Cleveland Browns. The Jets, there was positive things being said about them heading into the season. Those 2 franchises are an absolute embarrassment. And look where we are 5 weeks into the season. The Browns, they have 1 win. They made the worst deal in the history of the NFL. Drafting Jamarcus Russell, trading for Russell Wilson, and then giving him the contract. Like, whatever deal you want to throw out there, it's not as bad as the Deshaun Watson deal. Because you gave up the picks, and then even though Russell Wilson got the contract, the Deshaun Watson contract was fully guaranteed when no one was going to give Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed deal. And that dude just can't play football anymore. But look at both of those teams. Like, we walked into this season with optimism about 3 NFL teams that historically are laughingstocks. The Lions, the Browns, and the Jets. Now, the Lions, let's hope the good times continue to roll. Like, let's hope the Lions can find a way to get to the Super Bowl this year and win it all. But maybe for the Lions to do that, they needed the football world to balance out. There was too many bad teams that started to become or thought of as good teams. And through 5 weeks of the season, Browns, the Cleveland Browns, back right to the bottom. The New York Jets, they are treading water right now, and their head is going underneath the water, and they're coming back up for air for about 2 seconds before going back down underwater. And now there's a lifeguard there that's throwing them a buoy. And they just got Saleh out. Now we'll see if they could get that team back in and get them back to shore and at least make the playoffs. But just making the playoffs wasn't the goal for the Jets this year. So as we move the page and turn the page on the next NFL head coach to get fired, who is going to be the next NFL head coach to get fired? Robert Saleh, dunzo, out, finished after 5 weeks of the NFL season. So let's go division by division here. The AFC East. McDaniel's not getting fired in season. He can get fired at the end of the year. That's a possibility. Gerard Mayo's a first-year head coach. The Buffalo Bills, it's like surprising to me. They are afraid of moving on to the next chapter. Sean McDermott did some incredible things in Buffalo. That was a team that didn't make the playoffs for nearly 2 decades, and all they've done is made the playoffs underneath him. But he took them to a good spot. He can't take them to a great spot. At the end of the year, bare minimum, if the Bills aren't in an AFC title game, I think Sean McDermott should be showed the door. But I don't think any of those coaches are going to get fired in the season. AFC North. I'll tell you, it's unfortunate, but it would not surprise me at the end of the year if Stefanski sent packing. I don't think he should. He's a 2-time Coach of the Year award winner. Anytime Deshaun Watson isn't his quarterback, he's had success. He's made the playoffs 2 times in Cleveland, for crying out loud. But they're going to have to make a decision. Do you keep on doubling and tripling down with after this year, there's 2 years left in that Watson contract? Or you know when there's a bad relationship with Watson and Stefanski right now that you say, we're going to actually keep the coach and get rid of the quarterback. We'll see if Watson's the quarterback through the rest of the season because there's a lot of noise about Jameis Winston. I think Zach Taylor is on the hot seat. At 1-4 with this talent, I know the Bengals are cheap. You cannot find a way to miss the playoffs with this team. And right now, if you put a gun to my head, do they make the playoffs? I would say no. But I don't think Taylor nor Stefanski get fired in season. AFC South. Yeah, Doug Peterson. They are potentially 1 loss away. They beat the Colts this past weekend. They almost blew that game. If they lost that game after having that lead, he would have been fired. But now they go to London. Uh-oh. Is this another go to London and then you come on back and you get fired?
Ooh.
They play the Bears this weekend. And that's, you know what?
Very losable game.
These next 2 games, you play the Bears and the Patriots are going to be red hot after starting Drake May. You lose either of those games, and the Bears are now getting hot, I don't think Shad Khan is going to keep Doug Peterson as his head coach. And that's a potential destination for Belichick at the end of the season. So Doug is someone I could see getting fired in season. The AFC West, no one's getting fired there in season. We know Reed's untouchable, Harbaugh's untouchable, Sean Payton right now in that organization. I don't think he's a great coach anymore, even though they are 3-2 now. But he's untouchable. And Antonio Pierce just became the interim HC, or the full-time head HC after being the interim head coach. So he's not going anywhere. So in the whole AFC, Do you agree? Just the AFC, Stu. In season, the only guy I could see getting fired is probably Doug Peterson.
Yeah, or if it got really bad in Buffalo to the point where, okay, we're talking about they could miss the playoffs if they don't make a change sometime in November, maybe. But I agree, it's probably Peterson is the only one.
Yeah, like maybe at the end of the year, McDermott gets fired. Maybe at the end of the year, Stefanski gets fired or Zach Taylor gets fired. But in season,
that's tough. Yeah,
maybe the last 2 weeks, sure. But I would be surprised if those three guys get fired in season. Now the NFC. NFC East. I don't think Daboll's getting fired in season. I do believe Mara wants him to be the coach next year. I don't think McCarthy gets fired in season. Sirianni could. The Eagles are 2-2. Now they are getting healthy. And the Eagles' next 4 games are winnable games. You play the Browns, you play the Giants, you play the Bengals, you play the Jaguars. If they really bleep the bed here, Sirianni could be on the way out. So that's a coach that could get fired in season. NFC North. No one's getting fired there in season. The Bears are starting to play well under Eberflus. You know, Eberflus may not be back next year, but I don't think he's getting fired in season. NFC South. Raheem Morris, no. Todd Bowles, no. I don't think even as crazy as Tepper is, that Canales is getting fired again, right? A one-and-done guy in season. Dennis Allen. Like, I don't think Dennis Allen is any good, Stu, as a head coach. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Yeah. But Mickey Loomis said that he could basically go on to be Belichick. So it's tough for you to say the guy could go on to be Belichick and then fire that coach in season. Now, they started off 2-0. Remember, everyone was hyping up the Saints. Oh, here comes the Saints. Come marching in. Panthers and Cowboys, they blew them out. Since then, lost to the Eagles, lost to the Falcons, lost to the Chiefs. I don't think the Saints make the playoffs. I think Dennis Allen could be fired after the season. I would be surprised if he's getting fired in season still.
I agree. I don't think they'll fire him in season.
And no one in the NFC West is getting fired in season. So the two coaches that you really monitor, Sirianni and Peterson, potentially getting fired in season. And I would say Peterson, because his team is 1-4, and you got 2 games that the Bears are solid, they're building, the Patriots are no good, but you lose either of those games where your owner thought your team was supposed to be this year, after your wiggle room for margin of error is out the window now after starting 0-4 and you finally got a win last week and now you're 1-4, you lose either of those games, yeah, Dougie P, as much as I like him, you could turn out the lights, the party's over. Like, I don't think it's a matter anymore of if Doug Peterson's getting fired. I just think the question is, when does Doug Peterson get fired? It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. 855-212-4227. 855-212-4227. If you want to jump on a phone line, talk about Drake May becoming the starting quarterback in New England, the Jets firing Robert Saleh today, and who is the next NFL head coach to get fired. If I'm putting money down right now, it is Dougie P. Tom Luginbill is going to join us coming up to talk some college football at 4:40 p.m. Eastern time, so 30 minutes from now. But when we come on back, we will do a little overreaction, proper reaction on this busy Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show. But first, football is back, and what better way to celebrate than winning some cash with Sleeper Picks? Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you can win real money. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if your picks are right, you win. You can pick up to 8 players to win up to 100 times your money. And Sleeper has a couple huge offers to kickstart the football season. For new users, Sleeper will match your first deposit with up to $100 credit to your account. If you've already played, Sleeper's got discounted player projections for you every week of the season. So download the Sleeper app now and use promo code SCORE, and your first deposit will be doubled with the credit up to $100. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and use code SCORE, that's S-E-O-R-E, for a credit up to $100 match on your first deposit. That's code SCORE. Must be 18 years in most states and in state where it is legal. Promo code and other restrictions apply. Visit sleeper.com. Please register responsibly. Gambling problem, call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Paid for by Blitz Studios.
You're in a 4-minute break. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Another NFL week is complete, which means it's another week to freak out about your favorite team. Which takes are truly crazy.
But sometimes a game can be so bad, it's almost good. You know what I'm saying? No.
And which are so crazy, they might be right.
He's 6'5", he's 245 pounds. He's probably a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end.
Zach lets you know in this week's edition of Overreaction or Proper Reaction.
All righty, Stu, overreaction, proper reaction time on a Tuesday. What do we got?
All right, Jaden Daniels is red hot and the early front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year, with many even inserting him into the MVP discussion. However, head coach Dan Quinn wants everyone to slow their roll on comparing Daniels to other stars around the league.
I think everybody knows, how, exceptional and remarkable Lamar is. And so I get why people would say that. Here's somebody who's got athletic ability and can absolutely rip it as well. But I've always wanted Jaden to be the best version of him, and absolutely go for it in that way. They'll feature different ways in the offense than we do. But, as far as like comparison, I didn't allow myself to kind of go down all that road. I just really wanted to kind of stay in all the things that he could do and how we would feature him in our offense with our guys.
So overreaction or proper reaction, it is too soon to compare Daniels to Lamar Jackson.
I think that's an overreaction. Now, let me be clear. That's not me saying that he is Lamar. That's not me saying he has won 2 NFL MVPs. But when you look at the way that Jayden Daniels play, just like how Lamar did in college, and Lamar won a Heisman, Jayden Daniels won a Heisman, it's not the first time that we've heard comparisons of Jayden Daniels to Lamar Jackson. Quite frankly, Dallas Turner, when he was a prospect and he eventually got drafted by the Minnesota Vikings, he joined us on this show. I have the tweet in front of me on April 24th. And he says to us on that show that day that Lamar Jackson is his favorite quarterback. That's what Dallas Turner said. But he believes Jayden Daniels has the potential to be better than Lamar. Because we all know Lamar is the better running quarterback compared to Jayden Daniels. But we know Jayden Daniels has a ton of wheels and he could run. But the better thrower of the football is Jayden Daniels compared to Lamar Jackson. So the upside and the potential, you still got to accomplish it. Potential means you haven't done it yet. But I don't think it's crazy when you watch Jayden Daniels to say, oh, I see some Lamar Jackson, and he could be maybe Lamar with the better arm. It doesn't mean he definitely will be. And I'm usually a defender of Lamar, and I think Lamar is a better arm than what people give him credit for. But yeah, when you watch it, it's tough to not think that. So I don't think it's too soon to compare him to Lamar Jackson. It's not me saying I think he's going to be better than Lamar, because he's still got to prove that. But I see why the comparisons are being made. So is it too soon to compare Daniels to Lamar Jackson? I'll go overreaction there.
So after the Saints burst out of the gate winning their first 2 games and scoring 91 points in those 2 wins, surprise, surprise, Derek Carr and company have come back to earth, losing their last 3 while averaging just 16 points a game in those losses. Carr still has 2 years left on his deal with a dead cap number of $50 million next season, but just $28 million in 2026. So overreaction or proper reaction, the Saints should move on from Derek Carr after this season.
You know who would say that this is an overreaction, Stu? Any idea who would say that this question is an overreaction?
Maybe a certain New York football writer.
Yeah, Gary Myers. I like Gary. I was not expecting to get into it with Gary Myers last night on the good old cesspool of Twitter, but I think it just goes back to my disdain for Derek Carr, where I hate the woe is me crap and people thinking that this guy is actually some great quarterback. But last night on the good old cesspool of Twitter, I'm sitting there minding my own business. I'm watching the game. And Stu, you know what? Maybe it's just because, even though the Raiders stink, because you're a Raiders fan and I protect my guys, I don't like when other people take shots at the Raiders who do it to themselves.
They really do. They write it for themselves.
You know, maybe I was enjoying myself last night a little bit after a long days of work on a Monday, long day of work on a Monday, you know, after a long weekend. So maybe that could have encouraged me to maybe be on edge a little bit. So I see that Gary Myers put out there, exactly why did the Raiders get rid of Derek Carr? And I responded by saying the Raiders weren't wrong to get rid of Derek Carr. They just did a terrible job replacing him with Jimmy G. Derek Carr isn't bad, but there are many QBs that are better than him, and he isn't a franchise QB. The desire to get someone better was fair. Now, Stu, you're a Raiders fan. Do you think my tweet was out of line there?
No. I mean, if they would have had a better plan and maybe gotten Brady or Rodgers or gone a rookie quarterback or something that was better than Jimmy Garoppolo, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion.
And remember, at the point where Gary tweeted this out, it was after 1 touchdown pass. Derek Carr also had a really bad pick in the game, too, where it looked like he was the punter for the Saints.
He did.
So Gary then responds, Zach, that's an argument full of holes. They got rid of him because they didn't want to pay him with no plan how to replace him. That's the definition of mismanagement. He's way better than Jimmy G, O'Connell, and Minshew. What have they done in 2 years to get better at quarterback? Now, this is what Gary doesn't get. that it was fair to move on from Derek Carr. But yes, the Raiders are the Raiders, and their replacement options weren't good. But the intent to move on was the right intent. It was the right decision. So I wrote back to Gary. Once again, the idea to get rid of him on its own was more than fair. What happened after that is why the Raiders are the Raiders. But I don't fault them for wanting to get rid of him. I do fault them for how they handled replacing him. So then Gary responds, they are not mutually exclusive. So here is a joke that I throw out there. This is clearly a joke how I respond. Neither is you understanding that Derek Carr isn't a franchise QB and the Raiders are a mess of a franchise. And I know Gary's an older guy, so maybe doesn't get sarcasm on social media. And I threw a winky face in there. And he responds back. And once again, I've known Gary for years. I usually like Gary, but this is just curmudgeon, older writer douche. I guess I should defer to you with all the years you've covered the NFL. Now, at that point, I could have responded back. And if you hit low, I could find a way to hit lower. Trust me. But I said, I'm done with this. I'm just done with this conversation. And just because you've covered the NFL for all these years doesn't mean you're right. Like Skip Bayless covered the NFL for years. When was the last time that guy got an NFL opinion right? It's just amazing how people can't get that. So your question is, the Saints should move on from Derek Carr after the season? Yeah. But don't do what the Raiders did. Actually have a plan. Move on and have a plan to get better. But Derek Carr's not a franchise guy. The best he'll ever be looked at is like a top 15 quarterback. And whenever you think he's close to getting in the top 10, he falls flat on his face and he goes back into that 15 to 20 category. All righty, next one. Go ahead.
All right. The Texans are 4-1 and seem to be one of the few legitimate contenders to the Chiefs in the AFC. However, the team lost star wideout Nico Collins for the second half of Sunday's win over the Bills after he scored a 67-yard touchdown. Collins still leads the NFL in yards at 567, but is considered week to week with an injury. Overreaction or prop reaction, other than Stroud, Collins is the most important offensive player for the Texans.
Ooh, it's a great question. I'm going to say overreaction, and here's why. Because I look at the offensive line, I'm actually going to say it's Laramie Tunsil. Now, your question exactly was, is the most important offensive player? Big guys matter. So that's a big guy matters type of answer. They have enough to get by with Nico Collins being out. He is their number one wide receiver, but you could survive having him out for a few weeks with Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell on that team, and also Dalton Schultz too. But you got to protect your quarterback and keep him upright. So I still think it's Laramie Tunsil is the most important player to that offense outside of Stroud. So when you say, other than Stroud, Collins the most important offensive player to the Texans, I will go overreaction. Slight overreaction.
After dropping their first two games and looking like the worst team in the league, the Broncos have won 3 straight, including wins over the Bucs and Jets. Now, Bo Nix still looks very much like a rookie, but seems to be more and more comfortable each week, completing 71% of his passes for 206 yards and 3 total touchdowns in Sunday's win over, of course, my Raiders. Overreaction or proper reaction, you're starting to change your mind that Bo Nix could be an effective NFL starting quarterback.
Overreaction, I got to see more. I really do. You know, the Pittsburgh game, he wasn't terrible. The Tampa Bay game, he wasn't terrible. I know that they're on a 3-game win streak. He did basically nothing in that game up against the Jets. He threw for 60 total yards. And the Raiders, hey, I thought the Raiders were going to, I plussed them the 3.5 points. You could have put whoever as the dog in a Broncos-Raiders game. If the Broncos were the dog, I would have plussed the 3.5 points with the Broncos last week. I got to see more. Let's not get delirious after a 3-game win streak where, yes, Tampa's a good win. Beating the Jets, the Jets are kind of dysfunctional and a mess, and the Raiders are dysfunctional and a mess. So I'm not ready to say that Bo Nix is going to be an effective NFL starting quarterback yet. I need to see more. Overreaction.
All right, and last one, talking about someone who's doing it again, 39-year-old reigning comeback player of the year, Joe Flacco, has come off the bench to lead yet another impressive offense. In 2 games for the Colts, Flacco has 5 touchdowns and no picks and leads the NFL with a 115.6 QB rating, while Indy's regular starter, Anthony Richardson, is second to last in that category, ahead of just Bryce Young. However, Shane Steichen says the team is sticking with Richardson once he is back and healthy.
Shane, I know you're not on social media, but just to, I guess, get it out the way, when healthy, is Anthony Richardson your starting quarterback?
Yes, he is our starting quarterback.
So overreaction or proper reaction, the Colts should stick with Flacco even when Richardson is healthy.
Overreaction. I love Joe Flacco, but Anthony Richardson, even though I don't think he's their franchise quarterback, he is the guy that they're hoping is their franchise quarterback. So you go back to him and you play him. It's not like the Colts are a win-now team. It's not like they have this great team. You know, Joe Flacco, quite frankly, should still be in Cleveland. And imagine if he was still the backup in Cleveland, I'll tell you this, he wouldn't be the backup anymore. They would be starting Joe Flacco over Deshaun Watson this week, and they'd pull the rug out from underneath Deshaun Watson. But no, I don't think that the Colts should stick with Flacco even when Richardson is healthy. Now, if Richardson plays like 3 bad games, you go back to Flacco. But you got to see if this guy has it or not in this league. So that's an overreaction. We got more breaking NFL news. So, Stu, you would say Robert Saleh getting fired today is big news, right?
Definitely.
On a scale of big, medium, small, Marco Belletti, Drake May becoming the Patriots starting quarterback. Big, medium, small NFL news.
That's pretty big.
The Eagles, dun-dun, are releasing linebacker Devin White, who, according to Ari Mirov, has not played in a game this season and will now become a free agent. I would say minor news.
Mm-hmm.
But it is crazy how quickly a guy's career can just implode. And it's not like Devin White is some old guy. He was drafted in the first round in 2019. But you go back to before last season, he had the holdout, he requested the trade, and then the Bucs let him go at the end of this season. He goes to Philadelphia, a team that has been struggling, and he can't even see the field. And I think that's the toughest part when you are the guy, first round pick, 5th overall, you play at LSU, and then you have moments where people start to doubt you for fair reason. You can't handle not being that great player anymore, and you have an opinion about yourself that is so high, and you kind of talk yourself out of the league. And that's what I think is happening right now with Devin White.
That's definitely part of it. I think it's also sometimes fit. So maybe the Eagles just wasn't the right fit for him and whatever system. And I'm sure someone will pick him up. Now, will he be the Devin White that we saw a few years ago?
Probably not.
That's debatable.
That's a no for me, dog.
That's
As
debatable.
Randy Jackson would say on American
That's debatable.
It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will talk about the crazy weekend that did transpire in college football when we come on back with Tom Luginbill, who does a great job, ESPN college football analyst. Update time first. Here he is, El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Zach, the Jets with a surprise when they fired head coach Robert Saleh after a 2-3 start, leaving him 20-36 in his 3+ years. Owner Woody Johnson explaining why he made this move.
This is one of the most talented teams that has ever been assembled by the New York Jets. I wanted to give this team the most opportunity to win this season. I feel that we had to go in a different direction, and that's why I did that today. This change, the change that we made today, that I made, I believe will bring new energy and positivity that will lead to more wins starting now.
Jeff Ulbrich now takes over on an interim basis. Meanwhile, the Patriots have moved to their future. Drake May gets to start against the Texans. Pair of playoff games in baseball. Both series even at 1 begins in New York, top of the hour. Mets playing host to the Phillies. Sean Manaea takes on Aaron Nola. Night ends in San Diego. Padres hosting the Dodgers. Michael King coming off his 7 scoreless inning, 5-hit masterpiece with 12 Ks against the Braves in the wild card. He'll be opposed by Walker Buehler. And former Major League pitcher Louis Tiant has died. Tiant played 19 seasons, made 3 All-Star games, won 20 games or more 4 times, won 229 games in his career, including a pair of ERA titles. Tiant was 83. I'm Marco Belletti.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll talk some college football. What a weekend it was. Whenever people say it's going to be a down weekend in college football, I know no such thing exists, and that's always the weekend where the most chaos does transpire, and that's what we saw this past weekend. So we'll talk with Tom Luginbill right now. Does a great job covering college football for ESPN, and he's kind enough to jump on board with us. Tom, thanks for the time. How you been?
I've been great, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. So sure. Vanderbilt and Alabama, it's still one all these days later that I just still can't believe. I was at a wedding on Saturday, and I was watching the game on my phone, and even after having a few drinks, I was like, I know I'm drunk, but I this drunk to basically see that Vanderbilt is beating Alabama and taking it to them. All these days later, how do you explain the Vanderbilt season where they beat Virginia Tech early on, they eventually lose to Georgia State, they lose to Missouri, who was perceived to be a good team, and then after Alabama beats Georgia, Vanderbilt beats Alabama? It's really crazy.
Well, before I answer that question, who in the hell's getting married during college football?
Yeah, hey, sometimes you have those situations pop up, and I will admit, a buddy of mine, he got married. I was thinking of not going. I looked at the college football schedule, and it was a running joke on the show. I said,
he should have thought of not going.
Yeah. And I said, this is going to be a great weekend because no one thought it was going to be a great weekend.
Yeah, no doubt. I tell you what a weekend it was. You're right. You know, I think the thing that makes the Alabama-Vanderbilt game even more shocking is it wasn't fluky. It wasn't one of those deals where Alabama goes out and turns the ball over 5 times and they allow a punt return for a touchdown and, you know, they throw a pick 6 and the other team takes advantage, right? That's generally how these types of things happen. From word go, on that day, I don't think Vanderbilt's the better team full of athletes, 2 to 3 to 4 deep. On that day, they were the better football team. They were more physical. They were better prepared. They had more energy, passion, effort. And by God, I've never seen an Alabama team tackle so poorly in my entire life. They had 17 runs where a Vanderbilt ball carrier gained 4 or more yards after contact. All right, and that's not Alabama football, right? And on what planet should Vanderbilt be winning a game against Alabama when you look at them athlete for athlete? But you got to look at this thing, and you've got to credit Clark Lee. You've got to credit this program, their resiliency. I think a little bit was a bad recipe for disaster when you had that emotional roller coaster the week before with Georgia and Alabama, and you somehow pull it off. You outlast Georgia. And then what do you do, 18 to 22-year-old kids? You take a breath, right? And then you look at the schedule and go, oh, we got Vandy. And it's just literally the kiss of death. And so I think that Vanderbilt deserves a lot of credit. And we can't diminish their effort, their preparation, and their execution because it was outstanding.
So from here on out for Alabama, they got South Carolina, Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, Mercer, Oklahoma, and Auburn. How many losses do you see Alabama having with already one to their resume after losing to Vanderbilt by the end of the regular season?
Well, if they don't play well, maybe 2. If they play well, I would probably say none because I would still call them the best team of a collective group of athletes, first-year head coach, new offense, dynamic quarterback. Like, I would be very, very surprised if what we just saw goes on and takes the field against South Carolina. But the question you ask is interesting because it doesn't just apply now to Alabama. It applies to Georgia, it applies to Ole Miss, and it applies to Tennessee. So as we start seeing the carnage of cannibalization over the next 6 weeks or so, the month of November in the SEC is going to be absolutely crazy. And now the pressure goes on to Texas. Don't screw it up, right? Like, keep winning if you're the Texas Longhorns. Stay healthy, keep winning, get the Red River rivalry out of the way. And then you got a big contest versus Georgia. Georgia still has to play Ole Miss. So there's a lot of different things that could unfold here that could be really, really interesting.
Who do you think is, though? You know, we don't know how it's going to look at the end of the year, but right now, who do you think will end up being the best team in the SEC at the end of the season?
I think barring another injury or two, it's probably the University of Texas. And I say that I'm not just talking about Quinn Ewers. I'm talking about the dearth of running backs that have been injured with this football team. And it just shows the incredible depth that they've got. They're just playing really good, clean football. I think top to bottom, they don't have very many deficiencies. And their transfer portal additions have been strong ones. They've been as advertised. I think those young backs have really risen to the occasion. I would put Georgia, Texas, and Alabama probably all in the same boat if you're going to sit there and say, okay, we're splitting hairs on either talent or competitive depth or youth or transfer portal additions. You could probably throw them all up against a wall, have them all play, and, they're going to split games out of each 10.
Tom Luginbill here with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. A&M, I have a weird relationship with A&M right now because I hate what their fans did to Mark Stoops, but I like Mike Elko a lot. Now, after what I saw week 1 against Notre Dame, I would have never thought we'd be talking about them potentially going to the college football playoff, but what they just did up against Missouri with Wegman coming back too, outside of Vanderbilt, it was the most impressive performance I saw this weekend.
Yeah, if Notre Dame and Texas A&M played again, I do not think Notre Dame would win that football game. I think that's why we always got to remind ourselves it's where you play, who you play, but it's also when you play.
Yeah.
Those two things are really big and important. Listen, I have felt since August that if you were dissecting the AP Top 25 poll and you said, okay, who's probably the most overranked, unworthy team of their ranking, I would have said Missouri without question. And I broadcasted their Cotton Bowl last year. I liked them. I thought they were good. I thought they did a fantastic job. Eli Drinkwitz and the rest of that staff and that team, putting them in position to beat an Ohio State team. But they snuck up on everybody last year. And they're not sneaking up on anybody now. And what Texas A&M did is I think they proved that while Missouri's good, worthy of being ranked, they're not a top 10 football team. Now, what was impressive about A&M was not just their ability to run the football right down Missouri's throat, but when you make that change at quarterback and Connor Wigman, who's won that job twice, right?
Yeah.
He's been injured, but he's obviously very, very talented. There's a reason why he's won the job. And then he goes 18 to 22, just starts slicing and dicing. So you had all of the components working in your favor. I think it's exactly what Mike Elko and Colin Klein want to be on offense. They want to beat you up. They want to be play action. They want to be RPO. But it starts on the ground with them. And, dude, Zach, look at their schedule. Like we talk about schedule, you got LSU and Texas and everybody else. They're going to be favored by probably 7 or more.
If they beat LSU, I think they'll make the college football playoff because I'm not going to expect them to beat Texas. I'm not saying it's impossible, but as long as they beat LSU, they should be a team that's in the playoff.
Yeah, I think, most notably, it's probably 10-2, the threshold, probably to ensure that you have a spot. And, a lot of that's dependent upon what happens in the Big Ten, what happens in the ACC, what happens in the Big 12. So, yeah, I think that – but what's made this whole thing so interesting is we've had losses by teams who everybody thought, well, that's a college football playoff team.
Yeah.
And they've all lost to somebody that people didn't think was a college football playoff team. So it's thrown a huge wrench in the works.
Could Penn State – I know USC just lost this past week, but could you see Penn State going down to USC this weekend? No, I couldn't. I think that aside from Michigan, Penn State's the best defensive team they will have faced to this point. I really love what Andy Koldenicki, the new offensive coordinator at Penn State, has done. He has revitalized the run game. They're dispersing the ball to everybody. I think 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, they had 10 different players have a reception, and on the season, they'd had like 9 different players score a touchdown. I mean, the dispersal of the ball is really good, and Drew Aller looks sharp. I was really surprised at the lack of explosive plays for SC on the road at Minnesota. With that collection of wideouts, SC couldn't push the ball downfield. They ran the football fairly well with Woody Marks. And defensively, I think SC is back to being competitive. I don't know how good they are, whereas the last 2 to 3 years, they were just non-competitive. And so Penn State will be the better team. I think going west is a lot easier than going east. But a unique kick time, I guess you could say. And we'll see. It reminds me of an old Rose Bowl matchup, you know? Yeah, right? No, 100%. Oregon and Ohio State. Who do you lean on that one right now, early on in the week?
Well, everything I've seen from Ohio State, I absolutely love. But there's like a 2% part of me that says, damn, they haven't played anybody. Yeah. I get it's the same vibe I got after Kentucky beat Ole Miss. And I kept saying Ole Miss did themselves absolutely no favors scheduling that way because they were never put in a bind. They were never challenged. They never faced adversity, never had to play from behind, never had to make some plays in a one-possession game. I think Ohio State's as good as I believe my eyes are telling me they are, but they haven't had to do any of those things either. So you go on the road to Autzen Stadium. Again, I think it's a lot easier traveling west. And Oregon, my issue with Oregon is I still can't get their performance versus Idaho and Boise State out of my mind. And not because the games were close, but why they were close. Idaho and Boise State pushed them around up front. So if those two teams can do that, and I know a lot of that's mindset and preparation. You're playing Idaho, you're playing Boise State. That likely won't be the mindset versus Ohio State. But I am worried a little bit about Oregon in the trenches versus Ohio State. And I need to see Dylan Gabriel in this Oregon offense create some more explosive plays. That's really been lacking, and so is the red zone production.
Who's more likely to win the Heisman? Is it Ashton Genty or Travis Hunter, in your opinion?
It will all depend, and I have a Heisman vote, full disclosure. I think it will all depend on what your mentality is towards whether or not the team is a good team. Meaning that, you know, even when RG3 won it, they were 9-3. Well, that's hard to win a Heisman Trophy on a 9-3 team. You're generally 11-0 or 12-0, 11-1, maybe 10-2. You're into your Six Bowl, or you're in the college football playoff, or you're playing for a championship. What if Colorado finishes 6-6, or what if they were to finish 7-5? Do you have the mentality as a voter that I don't know? Well, I personally look at Colorado, and while I think they are improved, if you took number 12 and number 2 off the field, they're a 1-11 football team. So take that for what you will. I think he's pound for pound the best football player in college football. Now, he's got to stay healthy. Still a lot of football to play, and it's all in conference going forward. But I think, you know, it's not just Ashton Genty. It's Cam Ward. Like, what if Miami rolls through? I mean, he's been lighting it up. And they don't play Clemson during the regular season. So, but I would probably lean towards Travis.
He is Tom Luginbill, does a great job covering college football for ESPN. Tom, always appreciate it. We got to do it again soon. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for having me, man.
There you go. Tom Luginbill joining us right there on the Infinity Sports Network. Could be a good weekend in college football when you look at these matchups. You know, even on Friday night, you got Utah and Arizona State, South Carolina, Alabama this weekend. You got Red River with Texas and Oklahoma. You got Penn State and USC. Obviously, we'll see what happens between Florida and Tennessee. Maybe a last stand for Billy Napier. Ohio State and Oregon, Ole Miss, LSU. Even Iowa State now, undefeated at 5-0 up against 3-2 West Virginia. Kansas State, Colorado going to be a good one. Got some good games this weekend in college football. We'll take a break. How much longer will Aaron Rodgers play in the NFL? We'll talk about that next. And also Craig Carton will join us 25 minutes from now.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining.
Mike, do you believe in any way that Manny was trying to hit Dave Roberts? And are you surprised this has escalated to the way it has?
I don't think there was. I mean, listen. No, I don't. Just to answer it, I don't want to cast stones. I mean, I'm just not. So, 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond. He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Yo, hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll get to a tweet on a report from Jordan Schultz in regards to how Aaron Rodgers found out about the New York Jets saying goodbye to Robert Saleh coming up momentarily. But it is a Tuesday. So, Stu, we're going to get to Superstar Shoutouts in just a second. But before we do that, we will just inform you that Craig Carton, the host of Breakfast Ball on FS1, he's going to be joining us in 20 minutes from now as we will discuss his Jets that he had Super Bowl aspirations for before the season did commence, firing their head coach, Robert Saleh, after 5 games into the 2024 season. And I know Craig has played golf before with Robert Saleh, so I'm sure he'll have some good insight on the now former head coach of the JTS, Jets. But without further ado, I'm not talking about Freddie Adu. Stu, let's get to some Superstar Shoutouts.
Another week in the books. Who stood out on the gridiron? We give you our Superstar Shoutouts right here on the Zach Gelb Show.
I tried to say this all off season long, that Pat Surtain II is the preeminent cornerback in the NFL. Yes, Jets fans, that means Pat Surtain II is better than Sauce Gardner. Well, Pat Surtain II kind of showed that on Sunday up against the Raiders. He had 2 interceptions, and one was a pick 6 for 100 yards to the house. Pat Surtain II is my player in the NFL this week that I'm giving a superstar shout out to. Stu?
All right, I'm going to go with a player that probably a lot of people have never really heard of up until this week, and that is Giants running back Tyrone Tracy, who, against the Seahawks, he ran for 129 yards and 18 carries. You know, you go to Seattle, 12th man, you get a big win. That's obviously a really good performance, and they're 2-3. They're better than I think some people thought. I'm not saying they're a great team, but a good performance out of Tracy.
All righty. Let's get to the coaching side of this. How about those Chiefs? 5-0. Still have not even played a full 60-minute brand of football. But Andy Reid is once again showing, when I give my superstar shout-out to a coach, why he's still better than all the rest. They bring him Kareem Hunt. 27 carries, 102 yards, and a touchdown. They bring back Juju Smith-Schuster. 7 catches for 130 yards. They're just making it work with whatever they throw out there. And Andy Reid's relationship with Steve Spagnuolo is massive. And Steve Spagnuolo right now is the best defensive coordinator in the sport. And that defense in Kansas City is better than the offense. But Andy Reid is pushing all the right buttons in Kansas City. Usually I wouldn't give him a superstar shout out because he is the standard. But last week, and what he was able to do on Monday night up against the Saints, and the guys that he keeps on putting out there on the field, doesn't matter. It feels very Belichick-like with the Patriots, where a guy could be away from the organization for 3-4 years. You put him back in, he looks just as good as he was 3-4 years ago. You're down certain players because of injuries with Rashee Rice. Doesn't matter. You find guys to pick up. I know Mahomes gets a lot of that credit, but Mahomes has not played great this year, even though he's still the best quarterback in the league. Andy Reid is just running a fine operation right now in Kansas City.
All right, I'll go with Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans, who, in one of the most intriguing matchups this weekend for me against the Bills, he outcoached Sean McDermott. They won the game. It was a close game that they won. And the Texans are 4-1. I thought the Texans would maybe take a step back from, the good season they had last year, maybe get jumped by either the Colts or Jaguars. That clearly doesn't seem like that's happening. So at 4-1, the Texans are rolling, and a lot of that is because of Ryans.
All righty, we'll go to college for superstar shout-outs. Let's start with the college football player. I think I could give this guy a shout-out each and every week. I'm going to do so again. It's Ashton Jeanty. And I know some people may be like, Zach, you keep on talking about this kid. Yeah, because he keeps on giving us reasons to talk about him. To say all those things. But your offensive line still stinks. Your quarterback still looks like he's 40 playing on one leg. Why do you think just firing a defensive-minded head coach is going to change all those things and appointing the interim head coach, who's the defensive coordinator, as now the head coach? Let's hear from that interim head coach, Jeff Ulbrich. Will they make any changes to the offensive staff?
I've got tremendous respect for this offensive staff. I do. Every single guy on it. In the next couple days, in my opinion, these guys are going to be here on Monday Night Football for us. Saying that, this has been 4 hours fresh for me to take this role on. Everything will be assessed, the process, the responsibilities, etc. But I do not foresee any changes in the staff.
And one more from Jeff Ulbrich. How's your relationship with Mr. Rodgers?
I have a good relationship with Aaron. He is he's one of those guys that has, he's just unbelievable experience and he's seen this game at the highest level for a long time. So he's a guy with a lot of ideas and really positive feedback about a lot of different things, whether it be meetings, practice, game planning, scheduling, all of it, So he will be a vital resource for me in that way, for sure.
I don't know about you, Stu. He sounds like a head coach. He's got that, tough type of sound to his voice. Seems like he hasn't slept in about 3 days. The initial voice test of Jeff Ulbrich. Passing. We'll see how he ends up doing on Monday night. And finally, here is Jonathan Allen on the Sports Junkies on 106.7 The Fan in D.C. Remember, the Commanders just defeated the Cleveland Browns. Jonathan Allen on the difference in Deshaun Watson right now.
Talk about how he looked then
as opposed to how he looked this past weekend at Northwest Stadium? What's the
If
difference
I'm being
there?
honest, he looks like a player who has stuff going on above the shoulders. You know what I mean? There's definitely a confidence thing that's been going on. And, I always tell people this. It doesn't matter how great of a player you are. If you don't have confidence, you're not a good player. So I would say that's just the biggest difference. I think physically, obviously, he's probably not as athletic as he was 6-7 years ago, however long it was. But he's still, I still think he has that potential. But I don't know. Football is a weird game, man. If mentally you're not good up top, you're going to be weird. You're not going to be confident. You're not going to be playing free. You're going to be thinking. You're going to be reacting slower. So I would probably say that's probably the biggest difference for him right now.
Yeah, I think he's mentally cooked. And he's chasing the days of once being great. And when you start to chase that and you haven't been great for a while, that's when it really, really gets away from you, because then you're not going to do the little things correct on the football field for one Deshaun Watson. I did see by our way, maybe we'll play this, I'm off tomorrow, and it's probably outdated by Thursday, but we could fade down the music. I'm good on the news brief. But I did see that our old boss, Spike Eskin, is now at Citi Field for the Mets-Phillies game. Even though when he was here, he was like a Yankee fan. Now he's wearing all this Phillies gear. And he sent a message on the WFAN Twitter account calling us a bunch of losers, New Yorkers, all a bunch of losers. Oh, boy. Spike, I love you. But if you lose this series, people like you around here. Ooh, it's not going to be good for you on social media. Come on, Mets. Let's go, Mets. Mets up 1-0. Up against the Phillies, they have Francisco Alvarez on first base. Francisco Lindor at the plate. No outs in this one. Bottom three. All right, big thanks to Craig Carton for joining us today. Big thanks to Tom Luginbill as well. Big thanks to Stu and Samter, Marco, and each and every one of you. I'm off mañana. If you want to see any of my experience at the Mets-Phillies game, I'll be getting you all the behind-the-scenes action for Game 4 at Zach Gelb, ZACHGLB on Twitter and Instagram. And we'll be back on Thursday for a kick-ass show at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific time. Talk Thursday, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.